Here are other individuals, maybe some of the things that they're doing to automate, to systematic processes they have. I listened to one table over there and was talking about, I have this template in PDF filler and it does ... Awesome. I was listening to another one saying, and this is an important one, this is a question. If I can bring everybody in. Everyone, thank you. This is important because one of the biggest difficulties that you have, and this is one for me I had, is that I needed to learn AI so that I knew what was happening in this world. And so what do? I went to YouTube, okay? Kevin Stratford, Jeff Sue, there's a few guys, Carter Sirach, Drake Sirach, and I finally found, and please write this down, what you do with it is yours. I was telling another person, I have never, ever in my 15, 16 years of being in the fundraiser, ever bird dog. Bird dog means I get affiliate marketing. I just don't do it. I'm not saying against anyone who does affiliate marketing. I don't. And so anything I recommend is because I believe it's going to be a value added to you. So there's a platform called Skool, SKOOL/AI Foundations. 100%. 100%, I think that's the finest way to learn AI. We'll talk a little bit about AI because AI is going to be slow. AI, automations and agentic is just one component of AI. You have that, and you'll see that. We'll go to that slide. But please go there. I think it's like $400 if you want to do it. That's your decision. Learn, do, then you can delegate to others, but you know what they're doing. And more importantly, you know what questions or what you're trying to solve for because you understand AI. And it is by far the best, to me, the best. I'm not gonna name the names. I went to a university, I went to another company, and they're talking $25,000, $30,000 to teach me and my employees AI. And I went there and bought 20 seats. At like $250, they gave me a special. So that's how that works. Just go there, trust me on that. AI Foundations on the Skool platform. So learn, do, delegate. Okay. Any questions from anybody had one of their tables or any group? Okay. Okay, we talked about the diversifying services so we can, again, expand our potential clients and or, again, scale the business, but we need the business before we can scale, for people to solve for through automations and delegations. So, for example, again, I just did fundraising coaching. I told you I do annual campaigns. I told you I do, direct mail, digital, online, social media. And then I went into board training, DEI facilitation, strategic retreats, grant audits. I've done a lot in grant audits, got into the grant world, heavily into the grant world, so I do that. And then what I did is I created packages tailored to the common nonprofit pain points. So I have a different package for my people that want federal grants versus those that want coaching versus those that want interim executive directorships. But there's still a template, and what I call them my one-pagers, because all of my contracts are what they call list of services contracts. So you have a one-pager as a marketing piece that explains what I do, what my company, I shouldn't say, it used to be I do, what my company does. And then I would tailor the contract and or proposal to that specific vertical. Okay. We talked about creating duplicate client processes. The benefits is obviously going to be time. Easier onboarding, predictable pricing, faster delivery. And I'm just a frank person. So I write federal grants. My company writes federal grants. Every client, it's $4,500 to $6,500 a month, 3-month minimum, period, end of story. That's it. I'm not gonna negotiate. No, but I put that on my one-pager. And all it is 3 tiers. Do we need to do grant reporting, grant administration? Then that's gonna be tier 3, that's $6,500 a month. And I have no problem with client. And I'm also very specific, I'm in the tribal world. So we write grants for tribes across the country. My wife is Alaska Native, and she's been doing it for 26 years. She's forgotten more about writing grants than I'll ever know. Okay? So we have the onboarding, it's quicker. And here's an example. I have a 3-month multi-channel fundraising plan for small nonprofits. And it's the one-pager, so I have one pager for doing my fundraising, I have one pager for doing my grant writing. But it's there, people give me the information because my biggest delta is time. It's time. There's only one of you. I saw how many solopreneurs. That's the thing that's going to probably hold you back more than anything. You only have so much time before the next bill is due. Okay? And what do we do to make that time effective? And how do we, again, scale? What we're doing is scaling ourselves. We call it scaling the business, but we're scaling ourselves in many ways. Okay, create duplicable client process. Go through this quick. So every client that does fundraising with me, every client comes into the same. We use Dropbox, comes in the same thing. Been doing this for 11 years. I've been very successful with this. I create a dashboard for them. It's a template, a fund calendar. This is a fundraising calendar. Here's your grants checklist. Here's your digital online social media checklist. Here is your request for funding template that I've used, hundreds, thousands of times. And here's your funder list. I know the funders in Alaska. I know all 192 of them. Okay? And I provide that to the client. But it's wash, rinse, repeat. It works. I don't have to create something that does not work. Okay, now we go into the automate. We're getting now into the automation and the delegation. So we've systemized our processes to scale our business. Now we want to start automating and using digital tools to make us more efficient to be effective. And so some of the tools that I use, and the gentleman was asking back there, I have a lot of them, but Calendly, QuickBooks Online, Zapier, Ifit, and AI. And I always want to put the Zapier and the Ifit because those are the older automations that have been around 10 years plus. And then, of course, AI is a big umbrella. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Benefits saves time, reduces error, improves client experience. Because I use so much, oh man, back when QuickBooks wasn't online, man, QuickBooks Desktop, I'll never forget it.
Quicken.
Yeah, all right, I go Quicken and FreshBooks and FR80. Anyway, it was so time consuming for me to reconcile, at least for me it was, to reconcile, and now I literally push a button, it goes, and it's doing this daily, and I can run my P&Ls, I can run my cash balance statement. It's awesome. Anyway, so we want to go into the automate process, and you have some within your business now, but I strongly suggest start looking at what other things can I automate. This is me. One of the things that freed up more time than I think anything else in a while is I started just doing 30-minute meetings, just 30 minutes. And again, I'm working mainly with smaller nonprofits. You know, if let's say AARP came to me and wanted to engage me, I'd give them an hour, okay? But most of them, and I find I can do everything, and it also keeps me on track. And so I booked 30 minutes, and I was able to do more meetings to do. Remember, the one question I asked you, what can only you do? I've gotten to the point where I trust my people so much, they have my credit card. They have my credit card. And they book my flights and pay for, the different vendors that we use. But that's a trust factor that takes time. And these are VAs, offshore. Okay, AI, automation tool. What do we want to do with AI? One of the most important things I always want to use AI for, and I'm particularly talking about the LLMs. And those are your large language models. We'll just use ChatGPT as the example. You got Gemini, Claude, Perplexity. There's 5 different areas in AI. There's LLMs, there's AI image, AI audio, AI video, and automation/agents. At this point, don't worry about the automation/agents. It's a lot more complicated to be able to go on the Notion platform and program and use N8N or Make.com. I know it, learn, do, delegate, automate. But for you, it's a heavy lift. I'm just telling you, so when you see that in the training, don't worry about the agents, because you can either hire someone to do it, a custom automation, or you can get off the shelf now an automation that solves the problem that you're looking to solve. There's thousands of automations out there. And so we got ChatGPT, Insta-Headshot, Taja. So let me talk about Taja. Someone was talking about what is these automations and how does that work. I fell in love with Taja. Just got introduced it 2 months ago. I go to a conference, guy said, yeah, I'm working with Taja. I said, what's that? He said, well, I take my long form video and it makes shorts out of it, puts the captions on it, gives me an intro, an outro, and places it. I said, and places it? Because the way we did in the past, we take a long form video and we go into Opus, usually Opus Clips or Opus One, and we make our shorts. And then we run over to Buffer or HubSuite or Patty Post or Metricool, and we place them or schedule them. This one, literally, you take your 8 minute and you say, I want 10, 30 seconds with caption, with intro, outro, and a call to action on the last section of the 30-second snippet. And I want it placed on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Hit the button, 5 minutes, and I want it scheduled for this day. It's done. That's an automation. It's awesome. That's Taja AI. Runway, if you want to start working with video or text to video, 11 Labs is your audio. So check this out. I just wrote a book, Becoming Ken. Came out in May. I was working with the publisher, and the publisher said, well, you need to have an Audible version. I said, yeah, I know I do. And he said, $5,000. Like, man, but I just needed to move quick. All right, got you. I can go into 11 Labs, take probably 1 day or 2, 3, 4 hours at the most, train it on my voice. I think the gentleman talked about it a little bit yesterday. And then upload my manuscript, and it will literally create what cost me $5,000, a Audible version of my book. And then I can then send to Audible. That's what automations do. That's 11 Labs, okay? And if anybody has any questions on any of these, please let me know. Okay. All right. Hiring subcontractors, VAs, offline, offshore, onshore, it doesn't matter. What I always tell people is if you do start with your freelancers or part-time contractors, and originally that's who I worked with. Who's worked with Indeed and Upwork? Anybody in here? Okay, they're very common. They're your part-time. So I've worked with them. I need you to do my chart of accounts in QuickBooks for a nonprofit I'm with. I don't have time for it. Great, we'll do that. And they'll give you money. It's a project-based. But then you can also get a executive VA, and I'll tell you what that is versus just a VA, virtual assistant. Anyway, Indeed, Upwork. They're going to run you anywhere depending on the complexity and what you want to do, anywhere between usually, it's been a minute, but $20, $25 an hour. At least that's what I've seen, okay? The key, because that's that term, remember we said learn, do, delegate, automate, is what is the delegation? And you have to choose, what do I want this individual to do so that it frees my capacity to scale this business with a great margin. So I don't have to maybe hire a full-time, another grant writer, okay, or another person to provide these services. Admin tabs, research, design, entry-level writing. Another big one is social media and marketing. Those are some of the things that we hire the subcontractors for. So you have the subcontractors, and then, but there's two different models of really working with subcontractors, offshore versus US, Canada. So if you go offshore, that's called offshore VA, OVA, it's going to run you anywhere between usually $7 to $10 an hour. That's it. When I was exposed to that, and they can do these tasks, I'm like, this is a no-brainer. I personally have 4 VAs. Personally, 4 of them, okay? US, 20 to 25. Not the difficulty, but the beautiful thing is, as you scale, most of your Indeeds, unless it's project-based or Upwork, they want you to hire them for full-time. So you're looking at $20 an hour, and they're a contractor, 1099, and you're looking at 40 hours, $800 a week. Whereas many times with VAs offshore, you can do 10-hour minimums. And this is the part that people a lot of times don't understand, is that you have the opportunity is to work with somebody, and that's the only thing they're working on. So when you look at yourself and say, wow, 2 hours is not a lot of time per day, but that's all they're doing is your social media. That's all they're doing is your calendar and your, I have a guy who does my calendar, he does my podcast, I do a lot of podcasts, he does my ticketing and travel, that's what he does. And it replaces that time I would have to do it at $7 an hour, okay? And this is what I tell almost everybody I speak to about working with offshore VA. You do not have enough work for 40 hours. You don't. I'm in this business. I'm in this world. I speak on this throughout the country. And most people don't have enough work for a 40-hour-a-week VA, period. So, my suggestion, all you gotta do is Google it, say I need an offshore VA. 90% of the time they're in the Philippines. They all speak English. Every one of my VAs is college educated, speaks English, and will work like you wouldn't believe. Again, I'm trying to scale my business by taking off of my plate those things that can be delegated, taking off of my plate by those things that can be automated, and then I'm left with what can I only do? I am intellectual property in specific subject matter, just like everybody in this room. I can't have my VA in Ecuador. I got one in Ecuador. I got one in Pakistan. I got 4 more in the Philippines that do things for me. They can't talk to a client about an annual campaign. They can't write a ANA SEDS grant for $16 million. They can't. That's my skill set. That's cool. I have now this time freed up, and now I can work with 6, 7 clients, plus run my other 4 businesses. Yes, ma'am.
Why do you have so many rather than consolidate and just have one? Just different skill sets?
Great question. Why you answer the question and why ask me that? They need to hear that. So, and she asked the question, why do I have so many VAs? Because the other thing to understand is not all of them are full-time. So I have one that all she does, Lindsay, she's phenomenal. All she does is social media. All she does. She takes my clips. She was running through Opus. But I told her already, I said, your job is to put yourself out of work in this area. I will make sure you have hours. That's my commitment to you. But for 20 hours, she only does 20 hours, 4 hours a day. And I have 23 different social media platforms, and I get out a lot of content. So she creates content and delivers it. That's one. The other one I told you does my calendar, does my podcast. I will do over 100 podcasts this year.
But so why
Yeah.
would Lindsay, and she's doing 20 hours of content, and then her other 20 hours we do the calendar and podcast? Like, why aren't you all just like, Lindsay do all of it rather than 5 other people?
Because her skill set is not calendar, her skill set is not podcast, her skill set is not talking so much to people. Whereas Jim Bryan, who handles that, he'll get on the phone and you think he's next door. Okay? That's why. Again, skill set. And this is very important. And I talk about what tasks can be delegated, but you got to understand what tasks you have within your company that can be Yeah, delegated, not dedicated. All the ones that you should be working with that are virtual assistants should, if you can, have them college educated and they speak English. And you say, oh man, sounds like peaches and cream. There are some challenges. There are some deltas. And the main one is time difference. So all of my VAs work on my time. So they work from like 10 o'clock at night till 6 o'clock in the morning. The ones that work full time. Because I have some full time. And then the other ones work from like 10 to 2 o'clock in the morning their time. But they love what they do. I give them bonuses. They're fantastic. The other thing is responsibility. That grows in time and trust. Remember, I've been working with mine for over a year now and has my credit card. Got no problem with that. By my nature, I default to trust. But for many people, it's going to take time to get there, and I have no problem with that. And have they ever made a mistake? Yes. Have I ever made a mistake? Yes. They're not perfect. They're humans, but to me, they're beautiful people, and I'm so glad I have the ability to support them. But more importantly, it has gotten to me where I do very, very well financially. I can handle more clients, and I can handle them well because I'm not worried about that social media post. I don't answer my social media. If something is brought to my attention, I'll deal with it, but I don't have to worry about that part. I don't have to worry about my calendar. I just come in and I'll tell them nothing on this day. Other than that, I said, fill it up, because that's what he does. And I have one VA, all he does is run one of my businesses. He runs the business. And, I pay him $8 an hour. And he does a phenomenal job. Okay? All right, so we want to scale the marketing. Learn, do, delegate, automate. We know what our channels are, LinkedIn, blogs. And, I was talking to someone earlier and I said, this is so, if you want to scale your business, if you want to bring in clients, speak, get on podcasts. One of the things that I always say, I never sell from the stage. But people will come and want to talk to me afterwards. I'm not selling anything. But they're like, hey, or they have a question. I'm the type of person, for free, I will take I get questions from people I taught 10 years ago. Hey, I was working on my annual holiday campaign. Can you help me on this? I had a question on this from the CEO or the executive. Of course. I want your success. So we have our channel. So do the speaking. That's the exposure. Again, the VA can't do that. The contractor can't do that. Many times you can have an employee that does it. We've seen some. That's fine. But most of the time, I am the face of the organization because I can speak to all aspects because I have done the learn part. And I have done it, but now I've delegated and automated. Create pillar content regularly, repurpose across all platforms. Lindsay takes care of that. Delegate. See, this is the interesting thing. You can delegate without learning how to do a Facebook promoted post, or without learning how to do the demographics for a best prices Facebook promoted post. You can do it. You can skip the learn and do, but please be somewhat cautious because I always want to be able to look at something that they've produced or something they've done and I know pretty much what they've done. Plus it allows me to ask better questions or to solve for more pressing matters because I understand the process because I've learned it, okay? So you can delegate that and then 100%. We talked about Taja AI and that's just the beginning. It's going. This is the only problem with this, and it's already there, but it's going to be 10 times worse. It'll be so oversaturated that at times you're going to use AI, and someone started doing this already. Use AI as to where should I allocate my funds, my marketing dollars, because organics is like nothing these days. If I do something on an organic post, I might get 9 people see it, 8. Back in 10 years ago, you had 100, 200. Financial goal, break goals into the monthly, quarterly. And I always want to have, what is your margin target? what do you want as the margin? Let's say my margins are 26% now, okay? We talked about the EBITDA. And what I want to do is grow the gross, but I also want to increase the margin to 40. It's going to be hard to do that if you hire full-time employees. I'm just being very honest with you. It'll be difficult. But if you do the automation and the delegation, clean up the processes, automate the processes, it'll be a lot easier. Pricing exercise, okay? To scale business. List current services and pricing. Estimate hours spent versus return for client. This is important. Versus the return for client. The biggest problem that I have seen for early solopreneurs is they underestimate what they can charge. They underestimate their value of what they offer. And they underestimate what is the value to the client. True story. I go out in 2014, April Fool's Day is the day I started Denali FSP, and I had this lady call me up, I don't know, it was right around that time, maybe late March or early April, and I'm still looking for really my second client, because my first client was the nonprofit I worked for, and I said, I want to go out on my own. They said, great, we'll support you. You've been phenomenal, great. So I go there and I sit down with the lady. I'll never forget, she says to me, she says, I lost some grant funding. And I said, well, how much did you lose? She said, $1 million. I said, okay, how large is your donor database? And she said, how many individual donors do you have? She said, 0. I said, 0? Does your board give? No. No, they give their time. Like, nobody's heard that one. They give their services. And I said, okay. I said, well, I have a process. It's going to take a minute, and I can't get you from 0 to 100. I mean, 1 million in probably 1 year. I can't. It's almost going to be impossible. But I can get you a foundation to get started. And she goes, well, how much? I hadn't thought of that question. I had not thought of that question. How much am I going to charge? And talk to me about. I said $1,000. What do I sign? What do I sign? $1,000. I told my mentor, like a week later, I have a mentor named Alphonse Brown Jr. I said, Alphonse, he said, I wouldn't even come into your office for $1,000. And he told her $1,000 a month for 3 months. So again, know what you have of value. And then the other thing, what I've done also is I started looking at what am I bringing in. We write multi-million-dollar grants for tribes, multi-million. We wrote 19, year before last, we were awarded 17 multi-million-dollar grants. And the clients pay us $6,500. And when I first started, because my model was fundraising, I was $2,500 a month for 3 months. Had that for 10 years, okay? And then my wife's like, I don't think that's a good number. And I'm like, well, what can I charge them? And so let's try $6,500. Sign, sign, sign. Annual contracts. I'm a big one on annual. We'll usually start for 3 months, go annual. To them, you just brought in 37 million. You just brought in 2.4 million. You just brought in some. And then anybody in the grant world, the other thing is what we do is we write ourselves into the grant. I'll do the administration and reporting. And now the feds will pay for us to stay in at our $6,500. Okay? Increase the margins per client. That's why I have that in red. Increase margins per client with the delegation and automation. Remember I said, how much are we making, are we grossing per client? What are the numbers per client? And then how much expenses are we having per client? You can move both numbers. And then minimize, and I'm not going to beat that horse, but minimize hourly billing. The reason we want to minimize hourly billing is, check this out. Something that would took me 4 hours to do before automation and delegation now takes me a half hour. But all I'm billing out is a half hour. I'm giving them the same exact services that I was charging them $75 an hour, but now I can only bill out a half hour because everybody is. I'm ethical. That's my truth. I have a calendar that's all color coded and it goes every half hour and a half. And it shows exactly which clients I've met with, everything, what podcasts I'm on, whatever. But now that I'm so much more efficient, I can't bill out the same amount of hours. So that's one of the main reasons. From the beginning, I was always list of services, contracts, retainer for the clients. That's one of the reasons, because you will get much more efficient and effective. Therefore, you can work with more clients and scale your business. Okay? So retainers are annual, better cash flow, deeper client relationship. When I say deeper client relationships, is because almost all of my clients are annual. We provide, we're value added, but I built relationships. I had a client in Bethel, Alaska, worked for a CHC, Community Health Center, and he left that Bethel and moved to Tennessee. Calls me up, Ken, can you work with my CHC down here at Bluegrass? Sure. Because I built a relationship over 2 years. I got him millions of dollars to build a dental building. Okay? And we're doing big things with him down there in Bluegrass territory, Lexington. Okay, and then also you get better margins because you have time to create the automations and the delegations within that client, and your margins get better. And then projects, if you have to, and I do a project here and there, but usually when I'm doing a project, I'm doing a project so that I can then move you, with your permission, of course, to an annual contract, because I produce, or we produce, the company does. Okay, almost done. Okay? All right, so let's summarize. Scale, not just revenue growth. Remember, scaling is exponential. Growth is linear. Delegate, automate, questions. Questions? Yes, sir. And please, if you could give me some feedback, I'd be very appreciative.